Well, we are very fortunate now to welcome to XEP two fantastic guests ahead of the Outer Worlds 2's release. We have the director Matt Singh and the game director Brandon Adler. Gentlemen, welcome. How excited are you?
Pretty excited, man. Pretty excited.
Yeah, thanks
You
for having us.
Oh man, well, I'm grateful for it. Now you guys told me you're in the same office, so you're playing the mute unmute game.
We sure are.
So that's going to be a good time. I will tell you, for one, I appreciate you guys being here, willing to talk about the Outer Worlds too. I know the excitement has to be really mounting at this point. The first Outer Worlds that released back in 2019 to critical acclaim and strong success across multiple systems. Saw 2 DLC packs, a remaster. Now you're here in 2025 with the Outer Worlds 2. When did you guys begin working on the actual sequel itself?
Yeah, so I actually had started working on just the basics and the concept slightly before the first game even released. Like as it was releasing, we knew that we wanted to make a sequel, and so I was tapped to come in and kind of set all of that stuff up. And so that's when I was just doing the very basics and starting to build the lead team, like Matt and Leonard and a few other folks.
Yeah, and people like myself and Leonard, we were still working on closing down Outer Worlds 1, but still having some discussions with Brandon about what are the types of things we want to do. Brandon had done like a deep analysis of the game even before it came out of like, okay, cool, these are the things that I think we should really be tackling for the next game. So we had that foundation to start from.
If I may ask then, what feedback from the first Outer Worlds, be it, the standard launch or to the remaster or any of the experiences in between, stood out to you as something that said, hey, we need to address this, as well as we want to address this?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, my initial assessment and feedback actually matched a lot of what players had mentioned that they wanted out of it. So we actually had a head start on a lot of those things. But I'll give you a handful. Like one of the biggest things that kind of came up was folks wanted larger areas. They wanted more to do in those areas. They wanted a larger game in general. Whether again that be the size of things or the actual length of the game itself and the amount of stuff to do. So that was at the top of our list. Is like, all right, how can we actually provide that? What are the things we can do to even make it feel larger than it even is in terms of contiguous spaces? You'll notice like when you start playing, we have a lot fewer loading into areas. A lot of times you can just from the Overlands map goes straight into buildings. We don't typically load a lot of those things. That's the things that kind of helps that feeling. Gunplay and combat in general was another huge one for us. It came back as people wanting that improvement, and it wasn't just the gunplay elements which Matt and his team kind of put together, but it was just the overall combat experience. Better AI, more variety in the enemies and the type of attack patterns they did, things like that. And then things that were also extremely important was just digging a little bit deeper into the RPG aspects of the game. The first game didn't get a chance to go super deep into a lot of that stuff, and so we knew when we first started the game, we're gonna go really big on that stuff, really big on like player builds and player choices for those things, and presenting that in the world itself, which is why we put a lot of emphasis on our RPG interaction systems and things.
I want to ask you about those systems tremendously, but before we get there, you talked about the gunplay, and you mentioned that, and it stood out to me. In my observation, I am famously known as the guy who had never played an Obsidian game until Avowed earlier this year, and then I got hooked. Grounded 2 as well, it just hooked me. And when I saw the trailer for the Outer Worlds 2, it stood out to me just how impressive the combat looked. I guess I wasn't expecting that after seeing Outer Worlds 1 coverage, and it looks to me like you guys took a conscious effort to make this game more action oriented, or the gunplay look more impressive. Maybe that's my read being off. What do you guys think?
Well, so I'll definitely say it was a place where we saw there was clear room for improvement, but the core of the game is a deep RPG. That's really what we bring to the table. That's what makes Obsidian games stand out. And we spent a ton of time just trying to figure out how we can make the RPG systems deeper, more interesting, have more varied builds. But we saw combat as something where we could take a step up and it'll raise the enjoyment of the entire player base. So we did spend some early time looking at that. Even coming off of the first game, we knew there was a lot to improve there. We actually had some feedback that we were able to get from 343 at the time, where they were looking at our stuff and gave us some really good notes. And then I play a lot of first-person shooters myself. I was looking at like what analogs really work for us, and I spent some time looking at Destiny in particular in terms of how their gun handling, felt really good, was easy to still use, but had very distinct personalities for different types of weapons. And so I use that as a foundation to work with the team in terms of like, okay, how do we carve out these distinct feelings and places for each of our weapon types? How do we make them feel really distinct, and how do we even integrate them in with like the factions in which they come from and give them distinct personalities? And so we spent a lot of time just getting that to feel quite a bit better than the first game, and I think we're pretty happy with where we were able to get to.
If I could ask you to capitalize on something, you said 343 gave you notes on it. What does that look like? What does a moment like that look like? Are you guys cross collaborating in Skype calls? Is this gameplay sessions? What types of notes does a fellow kind of as under the umbrella studio offer in this case?
Yeah, so in that one, we had reached out and we essentially gave them a build that was close to release, and said, hey, this is where we were able to get to. You guys are experts in trying to get gun feel. What would you guys advise? And they actually had a team of people that actually went through and gave us a big document that was like a breakdown of all of the different kind of systems in which they'd implemented to make weapons feel the way that they do in their games. And so we can look at that and cross compare the analogs between what our systems do and what they don't do to start trying to figure out, oh, okay, got it. So if we do these types of camera modifiers, if we do this with our recoil settings, we can start getting closer to that feel. And it gave us a lot of really good insight into what it takes to make weapons feel the way that they do in their weapon models, as a place for us to kind of have a jumping off point from. But it was like a very, very detailed document that they sent over to us from their design team that kind of broke things down in pretty freaking awesome detail. Actually, they did a really great analysis of the game.
I find that so fascinating, and I'm going to ask you another question just on it that begs two kind of points to wonder. Like, does this happen often? Do you guys seek counsel out from other under the umbrella studios? Like, I can imagine players asking, well, did they go to id also, or that kind of thing? But also, do you do something similar for like the RPG aspects or the skill trees, that kind of thing? Not skill trees, perks and flaws.
Well, when it comes to the RPG stuff, we don't really reach out very often there. We tend to look backwards or with our own stuff or other games that are kind of in there. There's a lot of RPG knowledge at Obsidian, so we're able to talk to lots of different people. But yeah, we absolutely reach out. Matt just recently actually reached out to Ninja Theory because we're very curious about like their mocap and their PCAP and how their entire process works and getting full breakdowns, and they were really great with us. And we were able to get lots of information about like here's the process they go through when they're doing, for example, either like conversations or cinematics, and what kind of stuff maybe we can incorporate into future games when we're working on those types of things as well.
Yeah, it is definitely one of the benefits of kind of being in that Xbox umbrella right now is we're encouraged to go reach out to different studios and talk to them. Like Brandon and I went to talk with Tim Schafer and see if we could offer any kind of feedback on some of the stuff they're working on. We reach out to Ninja Theory, like he stated. Brandon and I actually, because we were in Japan recently, got an opportunity to go talk to Kojima Productions a little bit. And so all of those things that have helped us kind of just talk to more developers has been really awesome for us on a personal level, and hopefully it will start translating into our games as well.
That's super exciting, both for the Outer Worlds too, but also in looking forward, I guess, to future Obsidian projects. And I will loop back to Outer Worlds 2 specifically, but Obsidian, 3 games this year, something's in the water. We're talking about cross collaboration. Do you guys get to talk in-house about, like, with the Avowed team, the Grounded team, about what you're doing with Outer Worlds 2?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're all fairly deeply integrated. We constantly show each other, each other's work. We have company meetings all the time. We have blogs, and inside the blogs, we look at what each other are doing. And sometimes it'll be like, oh wow, they're fixing this problem that we've had, or they're trying to attempt something in a completely different way. Hey, send our character artist over there to go and talk to them really fast to find out why they're doing this, and maybe we can actually get something off of that. And so that happens fairly consistently, as we're kind of making the games.
Does that mean send the character arts? You're all in the same building, same hub, Teams call, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our Teams calls, because we're kind of hybrid at this point. We've got a decent number of people in the office, but like Brandon and I can go talk to Josh Sawyer down the road over here, or Adam Brennecke over on the other side of the office, because all of our teams are kind of around. And then maybe specific people might be a little bit more remote than others that we'll just jump onto Teams calls with.
Gotcha. I find that so fascinating and exciting, because on the outside looking in from enthusiast press and fan perspectives, when you see that big umbrella and these studios making this, you wonder just what that collaboration looks like. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I thought was fun, you guys recently released a trailer about companions, and my co-host was talking to me about how much he enjoyed the companions from the first game, but other Obsidian games in general. They're just that with Obsidians, though. With Obsidian, they're just companions. So were there discussions to have them more involved beyond just story beats? I know we nixed romantic options immediately in that trailer. We're not doing that. But talk to me about the companion element of Outer Worlds 2.
Yeah, so companions are always important to Obsidian games, and we spent a lot of time and effort making them feel really, really good. When we were first starting this project 6 years ago, I remember I sat down with Matt and we were just having lunch, and we were kind of going through companion quests, and we were just kind of talking through, like, on the Outer Worlds 1, where do we want to push those to go a little bit further? And so a lot of it was, the quests are interesting or fun, but a lot of times they don't speak to who that character is in the world. And so from that, we spawned a lot of things, right? Like, we wanted the companions to be a part of the different factions that you're going to be meeting, so you get like a little bit of an inside look. We wanted to make sure that they had in-game either abilities or some type of usage that spoke to who they were. So you have something like Niles, for example. You have field engineering with him, where you can actually just open up your workshop at any point, and so you can actually use him to craft and do other things. But it speaks to him as an engineer type character. We also wanted to make sure that there's lots of options for how they interact with you and with the world itself. So you'll have some companions that, like, as an example, Azza is one of the companions. When you're talking with her, if you have a full party and you go like, okay, yeah, I want to take you with me, why don't you go back to the player ship and I'll go get you later. She'll tell you, yeah, screw off. I'm going to go actually do this thing over here. And if you want to hang out with me, like, come over and see me over there and make sure that there's room in your party for me, because I'm going to go do this stuff. And so it just gives them a little bit of an edge, a little bit of an extra personality that hopefully makes it feel like these characters inhabit this world and actually have something that they're doing, and they have their own opinions on how things are going to play out. And so, again, a lot of work goes into figuring out how to put that web together. But it was something that we wanted to tackle very, very early on.
Yeah, one of the things that was really important is we wanted these characters to feel like they're their own people. They have their own goals, their own motivations, and if the player's aligning with them, that's great. They're going to be there for you. They'll fight alongside you. But if you go against their interests, they're going to have something to say about it. That might break out into a conflict. That might mean they leave you, or you have to fight them to the death. But if you do kind of, build that relationship with them, they'll be there for you in the end. We even did some stuff where, because our companions kind of represent different views of factions within the world, they may even help you out in some of those, setups. So, like, for example, Inez, who is part of the Auntie's Choice faction, if you're like caught stealing in an Auntie's Choice town, she might actually be able to like talk you out of that for a little bit, but it won't last for forever. And so, like, we're trying to look for all those different ways we can integrate them into the world, into the story, in ways that feel like they're these real people, that have their own weight within that story and faction kind of quest lines.
Did I hear you correctly in that they would turn on you if you do something too far outside of kind of their mode of operandus?
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty serious points in the story where things can happen and go south, where they may say something even as simple as, "You're going to take me along on this thing," and depending on how you've treated them or how you continue to treat them, that could have big implications. There's some spoilery type stuff, but again, there's things you can do to the companions that other companions really, really don't like. And they'll let you know beforehand, like, "Hey, if you do this, this is a point of no return with me," kind of thing. Or even something as simple as, like, let's say you have Inez with you and she's Auntie's Choice. If you're firing at Auntie's Choice personnel and you're killing people, after the first few, she's like, "Hey, sometimes I know that we have to do what we have to do to get the job done, but I don't like what you're doing here. So can we just lay off the Auntie's Choice folks?" And if you can tell her yes or no or whatever, but if you continue even after you tell her, like, yeah, I'll do it, and you can continue firing at them and killing them, she's not gonna like that. She'll turn on you and leave your party and actually attack you at various points. So, like, we wanted to make sure that the companions felt more realistic with how they dealt with the player and just reacted to the things that were going on around them. And that was something that we didn't really have in the first game all the time, but we really wanted to make sure that players felt that in the second one.
The weight of those choices just sounds heavy and intense, and I have to think that, like, you guys, the Outer Worlds, just it juxtaposes humor with these very serious corporate political messages. That has to be difficult in the writing room to strike that balance for the player while they're playing a video game.
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of hit on one of the hardest things that we have to do, which is really walk that fine line of having some weighty, dark kind of themes and tones at times, and just scenarios that the player is getting pushed into, while the backdrop is absurd. And it works well together in the same way that if you look at like a Wes Anderson film or something like that, that it can be absurd and kind of funny, but also maybe pushes a little bit hard on some things. And so for us, a lot of that is, like, here's an example. Like, we have the Protectorate, which is one of the major factions. They're an authoritarian regime, right? They're ruled by the sovereign. They rule your everyday life. You can think 1984. You can think North Korea type of thing, where you're a cog in the machine, you're a big part of this thing. But our twist on that a little bit is, but the people there actually do enjoy like living like that because they have the best food, they have the best medicine, they don't actually work, they have automechanicals, robots that do everything for them, they just program them and to go do things. And if you were to ask them, they would be happy with that. So, like, how do you like inject some humor in that? We have things like mental refreshment, right, which is their version of brainwashing. It's got a cutesy title and that adds a little bit to the levity of it. But it's the way they interact with those things. Like, they don't see a problem with turning themselves in for brainwashing. They're like, "Oh, I had a subversive thought, I better go turn myself in." And so while in the world itself they're treating this stuff very seriously, when you're looking on the outside in, it is kind of humorous, it is kind of ridiculous, it is like over the top. You're like, I can't believe somebody would subject themselves to something like that. And so that many times that's actually where that humor kind of comes from, is really playing on the fact that they think that this thing is extremely normal and beneficial, while you're looking at it going like, I don't understand how you could think that. And that's where you get like a lot of those little humorous elements and something that's a little bit deeper.
Another pretty good avenue we had for expanding the humor in our game is we actually added a new radio system. So you can tune it. You'll see them like in the world and they'll be tuned in, but you can also have your own personal radio and tune into these different factions radio stations, and they all have their own different ads and their own different songs, a ton of unique content that we've built for them. Very similar to something like Fallout New Vegas, but it was an opportunity for us to ask the questions of, like, what would a DJ be like in the Protectorate versus the OA versus Auntie's Choice? What kind of advertisements or propaganda or things would they be putting on their communications? And that actually helped us start laying out some groundwork for how they do things differently. And there was a lot of opportunity there for like humor. Like, it's funny, there's one for the Order of the Ascendant, because they're very precise. They're talking about like how they've constructed the perfect sandwich or things like that. It can be really fun. But it also gave us another point for player reactivity as well. So you can actually do things in the world, tune into different radio stations, and see how did different factions perceive your action in a different light, which is also
cool.
just really cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Like that sounds like a level of depth that I don't know that I would have expected in that particular case. Oh man. That brings me to a unique question, I suppose. And I really toyed with this one because I noted that in previous interviews about the Outer Worlds as a franchise, as an IP, Leonard Boyarsky had stated that the Outer Worlds is not meant to be a parody of like modern corporate states, modern political climates and corporate struggles, etc. But instead kind of just notes the cycle that occurs in the industrial world, in the corporate world as such. But certainly I have to ask, that has to be something that you give pause to when you look at modern environments. And that can be a weighty topic in general, nerve-wracking even in some cases. Is that a thing that you all need to consider? Or am I overemphasizing that in my mind as I ask an interview question?
Well, I mean, when we talk about these things, Leonard is correct, right? Which is we're not timely in terms of, we don't look at like what's happening in the news and go like, all right, let's write about this thing or have this influence.
Mm-hmm.
When we do these things, a lot of times it's over like the imbalance of power between who has power and who doesn't, and the exploitation of the people that don't have power. And for us, through the different factions, looking at it through a different lens each time of like, all right, well, how does that actually permeate the world itself? How does that show itself with what we're doing? And so again, I would say that I don't think that we really do the timely stuff. Leonard likes to say it's timeless. Like he likes to do the timeless things where there are always problems. This is always happening. And the reason it sounds like it's happening right now is because you could look at any point in history and you would probably be able to point to that and go like, look, that's happening right there. It's just a common, thing as just humanity itself to kind of dealing with these issues.
Gotcha. It was just something that it stood out to me because it's, how do you write that game? Keep the humor, not acknowledge, but to the point, it is timeless in many ways. I have two more questions for you guys, if you'll indulge me. We kind of talked about it, and then we veered in a different direction. I don't think I gave you guys ample opportunity to discuss the perks and flaws system and how that factors into your game design, the gameplay loop, etc. And so I just wanted to open it up to give listeners a chance to hear about that.
Yeah, so from the first game, we really wanted to expand perks and flaws in a lot of different ways. We started out thinking about what are the types of player builds we wanted to be able to support, right, for something like perks. And we looked back quite a bit at something like Fallout New Vegas to see how we did there. We expanded our number of perks to over 90. And we looked for all of the, there's some standard stuff in there, but we were really looking for opportunities for you to do interesting synergies and play with the systems of the game. So, for instance, we have like a new hazard type called Xyranium, where you can take poisoning. And so we thought, okay, cool. If we have this in place, let's play with it. Let's see if we could have a line of perks that are leaning into taking poisoning as part of your build and then transferring that into like energy so that you can now use that for gadgets. Things like that. We're looking for cool, novel ways of building out characters because we allow the player to kill anybody and everybody in the game. How do we make that a play style? Okay, let's have some perks for psychopath and serial killer that now allow you to collect hearts from your downed enemies, and those actually give you health bonuses, right? We're just looking for all of these fun and interesting ways of letting the player lean into these different play styles. And that philosophy carried over when we were looking at something like flaws. So in the first game, flaws were, hey, you're doing something that we notice you're doing. Do you want to do more poorly at that, but you'll get a perk point for it? That was an interesting idea, a really cool concept, because you're building your character. Your character is like affected by what they're doing in the world. But it was a hard thing to kind of feel really good about, because I'm like, well, I'm doing this thing that I'm doing poorly. Now you're going to do it even worse for kind of an abstract perk. Instead, we took the approach of, when we're designing flaws for the Outer Worlds 2, What if we do it as we observe you doing something, let's ask you to lean into that. So for instance, we have flaws for over-prepared, right? If you are habitually the type of person that's reloading your weapons before you've ever, like, I've shot a couple rounds, I've reloaded, shot a couple rounds, reloaded. I do that very often. We observe that and say, cool, you're always like ahead of the game on this one. If you want, go ahead and take over-prepared. You'll have larger magazine sizes, so you're a little bit less stressed out there. But if you ever let your ammo drop to 0 and you have to do a full reload, you're going to take a debuff for a while. And so it's, again, like asking you to lean into the playstyle that we're observing, see if you can keep that up and get some bonuses for it. But if you now stray from it too much, you might take a penalty. And with that change in terms of how we've targeted it, I think it's unlocked our ability to come up with some really fun and interesting things. But we're also seeing people that are leaning into, oh crap, okay, I actually do want to play in that style now. Let's take that and start incorporating it into my build, which has been really cool.
So cool, guys. My final question for you is an unfair one. I asked this of the 100+ developer interviewees at this point. Are you happy with it?
I'm never happy. I'm never happy with it. No, I mean, I think we did an amazing job, and I'm really I am blown away by the amount that we were able to get in, especially as it pertains to like the RPG aspects, the combat stuff. I think anything that we had as a major goal, we were able to accomplish, but I'm never happy with where we're at. I'm always like, all right, so for the next one, how do we make sure we also get these things in? And so I'm already talking to Matt even now about our next project. And all right, so we didn't quite hit this thing in the way that we wanted. How do we make sure we do this next time? Like, what are the things we need to plan for early? And hopefully that makes us better as we kind of move on.
Yeah, what I'll say is after like 17 years, I've definitely resigned myself to say, I don't think I'm ever going to feel completely satisfied at the end of a project, because you always see what could have been, you always see what you wanted to do, and like what you can still maybe do even further. But I am extremely proud of the team and what they've been able to accomplish over the course of the production. And I think that as a team, I hope that we're all proud of what we were able to do, even if we've got even more that we can do in the future.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and I'll point listeners and players to Outer Worlds 2, October 21st for premium early access, as well as October 29th across PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PC, and Steam, as well as being a Play Anywhere title in Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Luke.
Yeah, thank you so much, Luke.